This is why lessons is a big deal. Because if you're not finishing it in school, what is happening?
Somewhere else.
Schools need to come up with things that can really appeal to the students, right? And not make everybody, because some people, no matter how hard you try to include them, they will opt to not participate. It's not easy being a student right now.
I think even if, as teachers, we tell them about stories, about our experiences. I just tell them a lot about my experiences when I was in their position.
You know that your child is not capable of all ones.
Don't put pressure
the child to get all ones.
How do SBAs contribute to the overall stress and workload of teachers and students?
I don't really teach in school, but I remember my days, in school, and SBAs is I think it's good, but it's kind of bad because I don't think it really tests these students, because you could always just kind of copy a SBA from somebody who did it previously, in previous years.
Use AI.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, yeah,
so
boy.
it's not the best. I would my thing would be to get rid of it. Honestly, that would be my take on it. And in terms of a solution, I would say go with the Cambridge style of doing the exam. I don't know, not Cambridge style, but I know Cambridge, they would normally do the exam. You have a paper 1 and a paper 2, and that's it.
And that's it, yeah.
Yeah, and that, to me, that is what the exam should be like.
Right.
But I understand at the same time, CXC, the examining body, the purpose of CXC is for us to have our own.
Correct.
Right? Previously, we didn't have. We would have done the Cambridge exams, right? From forms 1 to 5, it was Cambridge. And even at some point in time, I think it was only 20, I was the last person to do one of the Cambridge exams in form 5. That was additional maths my year.
Okay.
Until we then got our own additional maths, and even for form 6, I think we were doing the Cambridge exams. I agree with, CXC, the examining body, us having our own, yeah. But at the same time, it needs to make sense for the students.
In terms of the teachers for the workload, I think it's a lot. It's an additional burden and stress for teachers to mark an SBA. So if you have a class of, let's say, 35 students doing a subject, if you can't do it in a group, that's okay. You boil down to maybe 6 groups. So that's 6 SBAs that you need to mark. But it's still an additional stress for teachers because you have to carry out the field work. You have to ensure that all students know what they are doing for different parts of the SBA, and then you have to mark it, and then you have to then now upload all of these scores to CXC online database kind of thing.
Yeah.
So to me, I think for teachers, it definitely is a lot of work, and for the students, the additional stress, that kind of depends on the type of student that you have. So if you have a student that is dedicated to their work, they will take on that SBA. But if you have a student that just doesn't care and they know that they're in a group with students who are stronger than them and will do the work because they know that the grade depends on them, they will not be bothered about it at all.
Yeah, I agree. When I was in school, we did not have an SBA. As far as I'm concerned, I didn't have SBAs in Form 5. For Spanish, you had your orals. Orals was always a thing.
Yeah.
But I don't recall doing an English SBA. And I think, if that existed back in my time, because I feel like I used to be very calm and collected and cool in school, but when I go home, I still do my work. So just that extra load when I get home to have to do that would have just torn me apart. So I understand when my students are like, Miss, this is so much. Because even though the subjects cut down from Form 1, when you're in Form 4, the SBA comes like it's double. It's double the work, especially if you want to get a good mark. Yeah. And then I think as teachers, what is frustrating is that CXC doesn't always know what they want. So one year they will say, this is what we want. I could only speak for English, but they say, all right, do this. This is the way we want this. And then you'll do that, and then the report based on the SBA for that year, they want something different. And things are always changing. So you feel like you can't even get your students on your right path. And I think it's a pretty big headache. And I understand the purpose of it because not every child tests well. Right. So I know you want something else to let them go in with some marks. I understand that. But let it take a different form because I feel like it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing.
No.
You know, it's not. And the children's attitude to that extra work, this generation, I think it's how it's being marketed and the amount of work, it's not accomplishing it.
If you have a content-heavy syllabus in addition to an SBA, that is a lot of work that a student has to put forward. So, and then the teacher as well. The teacher will have to take time away from teaching the syllabus to ensure in the class that they also touch on the SBA as well.
That is it.
So when it is you look at all of those factors, sometimes the SBA just kind of go to the wayside. Or the teacher may have to take their own time to then now go through the components of an SBA.
Yeah. And well, now there is the introduction of the students who will say, Miss, I paid somebody to do my SBA because I didn't have time for that. So that is a whole different market that exists.
Yeah.
And I think it may not have existed or be as large as it is today if the SBAs weren't, as you say, as content heavy, to be very honest.
Is the current syllabus content too much for the amount of time teachers have with students?
I would say you could always do it more time, right?
Correct.
Because at the end of the day, you would want to have a little more time to get in more practice with the students because practice is very important, as I would have stated before. But also to talking to students actually and asking them, well, where will I reach, that kind of thing, you know? They would say, sir, we need to reach here, we reach here. And, you know, I don't have that much contact hours with them, and they're talking about where they would have reached in school. So this is more so keep, I would say. The keep students, they would say like, sir, we ain't finished, and we do, and the reaches, like just last month, when in April, we ain't finished the syllabus. And that kind of, as we like, that's scary.
It is because what in my head I'm like, what would they do without lessons? And then B, it makes me say this is why lessons is a big deal because if you're not finishing it in school, what is happening?
Contact somewhere else.
Precisely. And I think that's it. Like for me with English, I always assume, like I'm a big planner, so I'll put it out and I'll write out all my dates and that kind of thing, so I know, all right, this is how much time I'm taking this into consideration, and I plan. But I think, the SBA does take up a big chunk of the timing and what you're fitting in, because it has to be done in school. Yeah. Like, you know, they could do things home, but they have to do most of it in school, that kind of thing.
So for Kerwin studies, when, like, same thing with Darian, when you speak to the students where they are in terms of like school, they may tell you, okay, well, we did this topic already, but we did not go so in depth into that particular topic. So I, as a teacher, would have to make sure that we cover all of the topics in a very in-depth manner, because you never know how that question could come in the exam. So for an example, in module 1, topic 2, it's called the historical process. So you have to look at the history of the Caribbean from pre-Columbian time all the way up to contemporary times. So there's a big chunk of historical time that you need to cover, as well as in a thematic way as well. So that's a lot of content that we have to go through. Because the questions for that particular part of the exam could come anyway. Yeah. And then if you look at, let's say, like geography, even though I don't teach geography here at the Student Hub, I teach geography in my outside life, I would say. And that syllabus as well is very content heavy.
So I've heard,
it's very content heavy.
I've heard that.
And if you have students that never did geography in forms 1 to 3, when they come to form 4, they ask you things like, Miss, if we are in an airplane and there is an earthquake, would we feel it?
Not the airplane.
And
what do you do with that?
have to answer that. Yeah, I got that question in September with this current Form 4 class that I have, and they said, Miss, yeah, if we're in an airplane and have an earthquake, we will feel that in the airplane, Miss?
Yeah. So now you have to like go back to like the fundamentals and try and bring the fundamentals.
That you are in an airplane in the atmosphere.
Yeah.
An earthquake happens in the lithosphere, we could say. Two separate parts of the environment.
Yeah.
That are not connected at all.
And that's an interesting point you brought up, because I think people take that for granted, especially here at the hub. When they approach lessons in general, they'll be like, all right, I'm going to write this subject. I need lessons. But I feel like nobody takes into consideration, except probably the teachers, that you're going to have a gap. Now, I need to know how big your gap is. So I don't need to know what I'm filling before I could get you exam ready. You know, and to do something like that and fit in the syllabus and get you ready on time, that's...
It's crazy.
Yeah, that's sorcery for sure. But we do it. We do it at the hub, but it's a lot.
How can schools better balance academic rigor with students' overall well-being?
When I hear a question like that, what comes to mind for me is a school's capacity to do things outside of academia. And I don't just mean like extracurricular. You know, like you have a football side, or not everybody can play football. No. But I think like schools need to come up with things that can really appeal to the students, right? And not make everybody, because some people, no matter how hard you try to include them, they will opt to not participate. Yes. But have things that will be brain coolers, and they could still touch on it. Could be Spanish based, or it could be geography based, or history based, or whatever. But it's still not going to come across as, okay, I sit down here, take out your book, take down the note. It doesn't have that feel to it. Yeah. You know, it's a fun day, a history fun day. Or, you know, at my school the other day, we did the Spanish department, they did a Spanish day. So they had like tacos, and you know, once food is involved, automatically people are happy. So that is there. You know, they did tacos. They had some of the students dress up as Spanish celebrities, and they had projects to make, so they stuck it all over the school, and they would go, and you know, so just those little things, because I feel like it's really hard being a student nowadays. Like I look back and I'm like, I don't know how I did it. Because it's hard. And when you watch like some of these schools, like in Form 1, my niece, she's doing 15 subjects, and yes, she went to the same school I did, so I know we did 15 subjects too, but I am watching it like 15 and I have to pass all 15. And if not, then it's going to affect my average. And I have to make sure and study for all 15. And I surely don't like all 15. So it's like, it's not easy being a student right now. So I feel like they need things, co-curricular, extracurricular. They need things to make them like school. I think that's the problem. A lot of students do not like school right now. And I think it's the academic pressure responsible for that.
And in addition to that, a lot of them are bombarded with things that their parents may not have experienced when they were going to school. So like we have social media bombarding students with all of these different things that, like you were saying before, as a child, we may not have experienced it, but they are experiencing it.
Correct.
So how do we as teachers help them to cope with things that we may not have experienced when we were teenagers?
Yeah.
So all of these things need to add some kind of balance to the students' lives.
Well, I mean, I guess I could just speak from what I can remember from going to school. For me, I remember having the Spanish day. We had that in school. That was kind of cool. I guess sports day, these things, you know, you can look at so those things just to, I guess, as you were saying, break the monotony of just coming to school, doing work, that kind of thing. So, I guess if we could have more of, just a bit of change in terms of the way things are being done, the way things are being taught, that would be, it would make it more exciting for the students.
That's it.
Yeah. And actually, I think too, like, not every teacher would be like this, but I do believe I am like every teacher. I try to be like just talk to them like if I was a friend.
You're one
sort
of those.
Yeah. So I kind of normal. So, and I know not everybody would be like that, but I think for me, I don't know if sometimes that makes it a bit easier for them to relate to things, and I think even if, you know, as teachers we tell them about stories about our experiences, I just tell them a lot about my experiences when I was in their position, when I was teaching. I mean, when I was in school,
right?
You know, and how it was for me, and as be like, I know what I'm going through.
Correct.
I really know.
That's it. Because I feel sometimes they feel like, okay, you're a teacher and you have it together, and I am here struggling in the trenches, and you cannot possibly comprehend what's going on with me. And I feel like sometimes leveling with them, with a boundary still in place, because you have to know your students.
Correct.
There's students who the boundary doesn't have to be firmly in place and they're okay. And then there are others, they need a little more guidance, and that's cool, that's fine. But I think like they need to understand that, because it is not easy being a student right now.
Yeah.
It is not easy, and to balance all of these things together out there and be successful, it's not easy.
The times, as you're saying, from, I guess, when I was in school to now, and the advancement of social media, it wasn't probably as prevalent in my time to now. Those are pressures that they have to deal with as well. So even if I say I could relate somewhat, I mean, not fully. Not fully.
Yeah.
I teach all boys, and my approach to them is not necessarily to try to be their friend, but to let them know that, okay, I understand what you all are going through. If you have a problem, we could discuss it. And I always try to give them sound advice, be it in life.
Yeah.
Many of them are informed, like upper school boys, and you know, they have like their little girlfriend, whatever, and you try to give them sound advice to help them with whatever situation that they may be in, because in talking to some of them, you realize that they don't have anybody else in their life that would take the time to give them any kind of advice, or to make sure that you guide them in the correct path. So once it is, you realize, okay, Miss understand us, Miss, you know, a little cool, she will understand what we're saying, you know, they would be a little bit more open.
Yeah, that's true.
Be responsive to what it is they're saying, be it academic or non-academic.
That's true.
And students today, you can't just be chalk on board.
Correct.
You have to show them that you are human as well, and show them a different side of you, not just the professional side, but also like the humanistic side as well.
That's it.
For they to feel comfortable, because once they feel comfortable, they would come to class, they'll be receptive. They would take the notes, right? They will ask you stupid questions, but all of that is part of their learning
all of that's
process.
part of it. If
it is they don't ask you those things and they just sit down in the class, then you know that before the end of that first term, they're going to give up on that subject, and it's going to be hard to bring them back.
That's true.
Bring them back into that state of mind then. I think parents have to be more involved.
You're right.
More involved. You don't have to, and you have to be very realistic of your child. If you know that your child is not capable of all ones,
don't put
pressure the child to get all ones, because it could end up in various situations. Either the child would break mentally and just spiral out of control, or the child will try to get all ones, but then what type of child are going to get after CXC?
Correct. Yeah.
Right? Or they're just going to give up and be like, you know, I can't get all ones. My parents think I'm a failure. So I just going to give up and do drugs or get involved with this gang because this gang accepts me or whatever.
Yeah.
So parents have to be involved, but they also have to be very realistic of their children. Not everybody is scholarship material, and that's okay.
Correct. Yeah.
Right? That's okay. Not everybody could write an essay. Not everybody could be a doctor. We need other things in life, and that's all valid and all correct as well.
I agree. I agree. As somebody who grew up, I wouldn't say my mom was strict, but my mom was a principal. So she had certain things where this needed to happen, you know, and I remember like going to school and no matter what was going on, I remember just compartmentalizing, putting that on the back burner and being like, hey, I have to see about my subjects. I have to get my stuff together and get what needs to be done. But I do think that looking back on it, there are some parents who their approach is really it's like children-led, which I understand. Like, at first I heard it and I was like, who leading who? But when, like, I saw it in action, I'm like, oh, okay. Because we didn't necessarily grow up like that. The parent-led and you followed and you quickly followed along.
No, but then also you end up in a situation where the flag wave in the breeze.
Well, that's the thing. That's what I thought at first. But I remember seeing
that.
You've seen that where it's like...
flag wave in the breeze, whatever. The parent say, the parent will be like, okay, whatever.
You mean like that? Yeah. Which I thought is how it was going to go. But this scenario I'm talking about, the parent, I think when I say children-led, her interpretation of it was big. She's very big on communication. So the child, it was more communication-based. Because when you think back to old school parenting, there's not much communication. It's I say and you do and so we go in.
And if you tell them anything else, you're back talking.
Correct. Yeah. There is no explanation. Right? And she was very big on communication and I saw where, you know, the child came to her with both academic and non-academic issues. I feel like more parents need to listen and not listen and say, well, that's how it is. Back in my day, I used to have to walk from Tobago to church. No, you need to understand that your pressure may have been a real pressure, but for them, their pressure is also very real. Yes. And you need to be able to relate to them on that level, because I feel like when anybody feels like they're not being heard, that just never leads to anything positive. Worse yet, when children, teenagers feel like they're not being heard. That's not going to end well. No. So I feel like they need to communicate more. Something as simple as asking your kid how was their day. I ask my students, how are you going today? And some of them tell me that, like, Miss, nobody asked me this. Which is insane to me, because every day my mom picked me up, she's like, how was your day? And she really wanted to know too. Don't feel like could have just say good and that's it. No, she wanted to know what was good, what was bad, what was in between. So I think that's what they need. Parents really need to start listening to them and seeing how they can assist them.
My mother was a teacher, and, you know, I guess, at certain points in time growing up, I think, you know, I could have do with that communication and hearing where I come from, where I am coming from in terms of my pressures and that kind of thing. I didn't want to do no work. I wasn't, like, I was kind of slightly not rebellious, but I was kind of hard, as they say. So, but I know she was important as well in terms of, you know, keeping me on that straight and narrow, and that is what parents and I think need to do. They need to be there. You know, you might have a little troublesome child. Do not give up on them. That would be what I would say. Don't give up. And I thank God for that. My mother never give up on me, because you know, I could have been a that would be my advice to parents. You brought this child into the world. You know, this child is here for a purpose, to impact the world.
I agree.
Don't give up on them. My mother never give up on them. You don't give up on them. That would be what I would say.